Okay, so welcome back to this channel. So now in this video we will discuss all about Zod. So if you don't know, Zod is mainly used for data validations in our TypeScript applications. So it basically ensures that the incoming data is validated according to our types and shapes. Okay, you can also read that here, that TypeScript first schema validation. Okay, so we define a schema, okay, and then we validate our data according to that schema. So this is Zod, and we will discuss all about Zod in this video. So let's start the video, and first of all let's install Zod. So I simply go back to my VS Code. You can see that here I have here empty project, which is a React project with TypeScript. So now let's first of all install Zod. So I type here npm I zod-save, and that will install Zod in our application. Alright, so now first of all I will create a file here in source with the name zod-main.ts. We will write all our code in this file. So first of all let's import that, and let's write here console.log hello. Okay, and let's go back to our app.tsx file, and let's import that here. So import this Zod main. Okay, so now let's start the application. So npm start, and I go to the inspect, and on the console I get here hello. So main Zod main cannot be compiled under isolated modules. So to handle that I simply go back, and let's change it to false for now, like this. Okay, so now if I go back, now the error is gone. Okay, so now we are going to write our Zod code in this file only. Okay, so first of all we have to import the Zod. So we have to import from Zod, and we have to import this Z, and with the help of this Z we can create our Zod schemas. Okay, so first of all let's define a schema for a product. Okay, so I'll type here const product z dot object. Now Zod has a function that is called object, in which we can define our object. Okay, so now in this z dot object we have to define all our properties of product. For example, we know that a product has an ID, so I will type here that ID is going to be z dot. Now we know that ID is a string, so I will use here string method. So now this is our product schema, in which we only have one field, that is ID, and we have typed here that this ID is going to be a string. Okay, and we have defined that in this object. And now to parse this we have to use a function that is called parse. So I will type in here product dot parse. Okay, and then I will pass in here the ID. So let's type here ID, that is going to be 1 2 3, like this. Simply save it, and now if I go back and if I reload the page, you can see that here I got nothing. Okay, if I type in here const res is going to be this, and I log in here this res, and if I go back you can see that we get back here our ID. But if I remove these codes from here and only type here number, save it and go back, if I reload this page you can see that now we get here Zod error. Okay, so now it will throw the error. There is another method that we can use, that is called save parse. So that will basically return the response and give us success false and then the error messages. So let's say if I type here save parse, like this, if I save it, and now if I go back you can see that we get here success false. Okay, because there is an error, and we have this error that contains that issues, and this is the message expected string but received a number, because we have typed here that this ID is going to be string but we have passed here number, so validation failed, and we get this error that expected string and received number. And we can also define here our own custom message. If I type in here like the message is going to be please enter a string, like this. And now if I reload this page once, let me show you here. Now you can see that here we get our own message here that please enter a string, instead of that expected string received number. So you can also override the messages like this. Okay, and now if I type in here, let's make it string, let's add one more function here that is called UUID. Okay, so I will type here that this string is going to be a UUID. If I save it, and now if I go back, and now you can see that here again we get here success false, and if I explore the error, you can see that here invalid UUID, because this is not a valid UUID. Okay, so let's put in here a valid UUID. So I will simply copy one. Okay, and I will add that here. Now if I save it, if I go back, and now you can see that here success is true because this is a valid UUID. Okay, and now the data, we have our ID. So in this way we can basically parse our schema in Zod. Okay, with the help of this use parse we get a proper error message. Okay, so now let's define our other fields. First of all is going to be ID, that is going to be a string and a UUID. And now let's define here that the name of the product. So let's say the name of the product, definitely that is going to be a string, and I will define here that a message, please enter a string. Okay, and then let's give in here our default value is going to be product name. If I save it, and now if I go back, you can see that here we still get here success true. If I explore that, we get in here ID and the name of the product, because we have defined a default name of the product here. If I type here name, let's say laptop, if I save it, and now you will see that we are getting here laptop. So now with the help of this default function, we can also define a default value for that field. So if user doesn't pass the name of the product here, by default that is going to be the product name. So now let's define our third field, that is going to be description. Okay, I type here description, and we know that this is also going to be string. So I will use here message that, let's remove this one, please enter a string. Now we can also change here the messages. If I type here like, let's say required error, so I type here please enter product description. Okay, if I save it, and now if I go back, and if I reload this page once, success false, we have here error, and in the issues we have here please enter product description, because this is a required field. Okay, so we get here proper error message for the required. And if I type in here description, let's say this is a laptop, save it, and now if I go back, you can see that we still have here error. Let's see what is the error. So please enter a product description. So we have a wrong spelling, so I will correct that. And now we get here success true, because now we have passed in here the product description. We can also pass one more option here, that is called invalid type error. So let's say we can type here that product description must be a string. So if I type here like 1 2 3, save it, go back, you can see that here success false, and now we get here our error message, that is going to be product description must be a string. Okay, so in this way we can define here required error and invalid type error for any of the properties. Alright, and now let's define here our fourth property, that is going to be price. So now we know that price is going to be a number, so I will use here z dot number. Okay, so I have put here that this field is going to be number. Okay, and if I type in here price, let's say 12, save it, and you can see that here it is passing. So now let's add one more function here, that is going to be positive, that this number should be positive, because we cannot have a negative price in our database or in our application. So I will type here that price must be a positive number, or price must be greater than 0. Save it, and now if I go back, success true. If I type here -12, so it fails. Okay, because this is a negative number, so we get here too small, price must be greater than 0, minimum should be 0. We can also define here a min value, like I use here dot min is going to be 1. Oops, that is dot. Save it, and now if I go back, if I reload the page, so now let's put in here 0 like this, because minimum value is 1. So if I go back, it fails, and if I go to the error, in the issues we have this number must be greater than or equal to 1. You can see that here. And we also have here one more issue, that is price must be greater than 0. So in this we can also define here our number that is going to be positive and minimum is going to be 1. If I type here 12, it will parse and it is successful. Okay, so after price, let's imagine we have the product image. So I will use in here image, okay, that is going to be a string. Okay, so if I type in here like image like this, now this is a URL. So I can also use here one more function that is going to be URL, that make sure that this field must be a URL. If I save it, it is passing. So if I basically type here something like this, save it, go back, you can see that it is failing. Okay, so we have to enter here a valid URL. And in the same way we can find here one more field that is going to be categories. Okay, so we know that product can have more than one category, so we can use here a zord.array. Okay, we type here zord.array and we can define here that this array is going to be array of strings. Okay, so let's say if I put in here categories and I use here like laptop, go back, you can see that it is failing. So if I go to the error in the issues, so we have here it is required. Okay, so let's first of all put that here, save it. Now if I check it again, so let's go to the error issues. We have in here expected array but receive a string, so we have to pass in here an array like this, save it, and now it is passing. Okay, so in this way we can define our product schema. We have defined here a ID that is going to be UUID, name, description, price that must be positive and minimum is going to be 1, image that must be URL, category that must be an array. So before moving on, let's see first of all actually how we can extract our errors from this data, from this if I type in here like this. So I have to extract the errors from this error object from here, from these issues. Okay, so for that I will define a function here at the top. I will call it const extract errors. Okay, so in that we are going to pass in our errors that we want to extract. So errors, that is going to be z dot zord error. Okay, so we're going to pass in here our zord errors and then we have to display that right here. Okay, so first of all I will create here the error obj that is going to be an empty object, and before that actually let's check here that if not res dot success, we know that we have here this success variable. We check that if the success is false, this means that there is some error. Okay, and then we have to extract our errors. So let's call it product response like this. So here I will simply call in my extract errors and pass in here product response dot error. Okay, and now we have our errors in here. So what I will do here is I will simply console.log in here the errors dot issues. Okay, if I save it and go back and reload this page, you can see that now we have the issues array here that contains all the errors that we want. So now we have to structure that. So what I will do here is I will simply type here that error dot issues dot for each issue I simply have to push that issue in this error obj. So I will add in here that errors is going to be, first of all I'll spread whatever in the error obj, and then we have to add in here all the issues one by one. Okay, so first of all we need in here let's say issues has a array that is path that contains the field name. So we will first of all extract that. So for that I will simply type in here that issue, which is the key, dot path of 0. We know that this is an array, so we will get these categories and we will set it as a key because this is field name, and then the value that is going to be issue dot message, which is this one. Okay, and at the end we will simply return from here the error obj. And now let's see what we get back. If I reload the page, now you can see that here. Let's comment out this one for now. If I reload the page, you can see that here we get here proper error message that category expected array receive string. Okay, and if I just let's say pass in here a string, and you can see that here now we get here two error messages: price expected number receive string, category expected array receive string. So in this way we can extract our errors from this error object. Okay, so now let's move on. Now we know that how we can extract errors from our Zod error object, how we can create a schema, how we can parse a schema. So let's move on and let's learn more about Zod. Okay, so now let's first of all correct this one. Now let's create one more schema in here, and that is going to be const customer. Okay, we can type in here z dot object. Okay, this is going to be an object. In that we're going to have our fields. First of all, let's say we have the ID of the basically customer, that is going to be a string, that is going to be a UUID. And let's say we also have the name of the user, that is also going to be string. And let's say we have the email of the user. So we can use in here z.string.email. Okay, so it will make sure that user must enter a valid email address. And then we can also define in here the phone number. Okay, so for the phone we can use in here either this minimum, or we can also use the regex. Okay, so let's say I type here z.string, that it is going to be a string, and we also have to define the pattern of that phone number. So we will use here regex. Okay, so let's define regex for this phone number. Let me put down here, that is going to be like this. So let's say 1 2 3 in brackets, then space 4 5 6 dash, then this. So this is a US phone number format. You can change that if you want, but I want this format, so I will define that in the regex. So let's start the regex. So I will start my regex in here. Okay, so now I will add in here this sign. This means that this is the start of our regular expression. Okay, and now we have to match our result. Okay, so first of all, this is going to be in brackets, so I will put in here my round brackets. Okay, now in that I will simply type in here that match exactly these 3 digits. So I will use here /d. Okay, and then I put here curly brackets and put in here 3. This means that there must be 3 digits in these brackets. And I also have to put in here this slash to make sure that this ends here. Okay, and then after this bracket, okay, I also have to handle this part. So I will simply type in here that /d. We also have 3 digits, and then we have to put in here dash, and then again we have to start it with /d, and then we have here 4 digits like this. And at the end we will put in here dollar, because this is the end of regular expression. Okay, and then I will simply pass here a message that is going to be invalid phone number. Okay, so this is the regex. So now let's define here. For example, I type in here const customer response is going to be customer.saveParse, and pass in here the ID, which is UUID, name, phone number, and then the email. So now if I simply let's copy it from here and I put that in here. So that is going to be customer response. If I save it, now if I go back and now let's reload the page, so you can see that here we got here invalid email. So that is going to be hello@johndoe.com. If I now reload the page, now you can see that success is true because we have here valid details. So now if I change here, like remove this bracket from here, you can see that it is failing. Invalid phone number, we have to put in here bracket. If I remove this space, again invalid phone number. So this means that our regex is working. If I remove this 0 from here, and again we have our invalid phone number. Okay, so we have to put in here a valid phone number. So in this way we can also define our regex if we want, like to validate a phone number or any other field. So I hope that you understand. Now let's move on and let's discuss more about Zod. So let me comment out this part from here, and now let's move on. Now let's define here one more schema for our order and order item. So for example, I can say that const order item is going to be z dot object. Okay, now in this object I am going to define all my fields. So first of all, let's say in order items we are going to have our product ID and then the quantity of that order. Okay, so I will put in here that product ID is going to be UUID, and then I will define here that the quantity is going to be a number. Let's move this one for now. That this quantity is going to be a number. It must be int and it must be positive. Okay, so we have made sure that the number must be int and positive, and then this is our order item. So now I can also use one more function here that is called extend. If we want to extend this schema, we can also use in here dot extend. Okay, and then we can simply extend our schema here. Let's say I want to extend here and put in here total. That is going to be z dot number and it must be positive. Okay, so we can also extend our schema with the help of this schema function. So this is going to be our order item. Okay, so now let's parse it. So I will type in here const order item response, and we have to parse it in here, and we will pass in here our product ID, quantity, and then the total value. And then I will simply again copy this part and let's see what we get back. So that is going to be this. If I save it and now if I go back and reload this page, we get here success true. We have here correct data. For example, if I remove this total from here and now if I go back and see that the total is required. Okay, so in this way we can use this extend to extend our schema. So we have more functions here. Let's see. First of all, I have here dot omit. Okay, let's say I want to omit in here total. Okay, if I save it and now if I go back and if I reload this page, you can see that here we only get here product ID and quantity in the response. We don't have total because we have defined here omit total. So this means that this omit is going to remove this field from the response. You can also type in here like quantity. I want to remove quantity and I also want to remove here total. If I now reload the page, you can see that we only have in here product ID. So we can use this omit to basically omit any field. In the same way, we have pick that will basically pick a specific field. For example, I comment out this one and use here dot pick, and I only want to pick in here the, let's say, product ID. Okay, I will type in here true. If I save it and now if I go back reload this page, you can see that we only have in here product ID because we only have picked the product ID. So in this way we can omit some fields or a single field, and we can also pick a single field and other fields. Okay, so we have omit and pick, and after that we have one more field function that is going to be dot strict. If I save it and reload this page, you can see that we get here true because we have passed all the fields. Now let's say if I type in here one more field like stock, that is going to be 12. If I save it and you can see that here we get here error that unrecognized key in the object stock. Okay, but if I remove this strict and if I reload the page, you can see that it is passing and it is giving us all the fields. So by default, if we pass any additional field in these parts or safe parts, the Zord is going to exclude that field. But if we use here strict, this means that we are telling the Zord that to strictly check the schema. So now we don't have this stock in our schema, so it will throw the error. Okay, so let's put that here. So now you can see that we're getting here the error message that it is a unrecognized key. So in this way we can use this strict to restrict our schema to only use these fields while parsing. Okay, and after strict we have one more function that is called partial. Okay, we know that we also have partial in TypeScript, which is just like that it is going to be partial. So let's see if I remove this from here, save it, reload the page, it is true. And now if I go back and remove this total from here, you can see that it's still true because we want only partial result. Okay, so we can also use partial in here just like TypeScript. So this is the partial, and we have one more here that we can use, that is required. If I save it, go back, reload the page, you can see that total is required. So this required will basically make sure that all the fields in these schema are required. So you have to define here total, that is going to be this. So now the success is true. So in this way we can basically chain our functions one by one like this: required, partial, strict, omit, and pick. Okay, so these are some functions that I want to discuss. Now let's move on and discuss more about Zod. Now we have here this basically ordered item. If I type in here, let's const order item schema, that is going to be order item dot key of. Okay, and now if I log this just to show you, if I go back, so you can see that here we got this Zod enum for all the keys of our object schema. Okay, and you can also like type in here dot enum. If I save it and reload the page, now you can see that here we go also get here enum for our schema. Product ID, that is going to be this, quantity, that is going to be this, total, that is going to be this. So we can also create our enum like this. Okay, and now let's move on and let's create one more schema for the order. If I simply let's comment out this part. Okay, and let's define here our order schema. Okay, so z dot object, and in that let's define our more fields and let's discuss more about Zod. So first of all, let's say we are going to have in here the ID of the order, then the customer ID, that is also going to be UUID, and then we are going to have in here the items array that contains the order items. So that is going to be z dot array. It is going to be array of these order items, these ones. Okay, so we can also type in here that this items is going to be array of this order item. Okay, and then we can also have here one more field that is called status of this order, and let's define here a enum. So z dot enum, and we can define our enum like this, that either it is going to be pending, completed, or cancelled. So this is our order schema that contains the ID, customer ID, the items array of these order items, and then the status, that is going to be enum. So let's parse it. So I will type in here const order response, and we will define in here the customer ID, and then the items, and then the category status, that is going to be pending. Okay, and then we have to simply parse it. So I will simply copy it from here and I put that here, and that is going to be order response like this. If I go back and reload this page, you can see that success is true, and we are getting here customer ID, items, that is going to contain product ID, quantity, and total. And if I go back and if I just remove this from here, reload, it is failing that items is required. So we have to put in here the total. Okay, if I remove it, type here wrong enum like this, and if I reload it, you can see that invalid enum value expected, pending, completed, or cancelled, receive pending one. So we have to type in here correct value. So in this way we can also use here enum and the array like this. Now let's use here a transform function that will help us to transform the response. So if I simply go back here and let's search here transform. So you can see that here we have this transform. So it helps us to transform data after parsing using the transform method. Okay, so let's use this function to transform our data. So after parsing, what we will do is we will calculate the let's say total amount. So after this, basically here I will use dot transform. Okay, and from transform I will get my order, or you can say here data. Okay, so this order is going to be this part, which is this one. Okay, so what I will do here is I will simply return from here, and I will say that whatever in the order, and then I want to calculate the total. So for that I will use this reduce function. So order dot items, which is this array, I will use here reduce, and we know that order items have this total field. So I will add all the total of the order items one by one. So it will give us the order and then the total. So in this way we can transform our response. If I save it and now if I go back and let's reload this page once, so now you can see that here we also have in here the total, that is going to be 12. You can also put here total amount like this. So the total amount is going to be this. So it will add all the basically items. Let's add one more here like this. So now you can see that here we have 134. So in this way we can use this transform function to transform our data after parsing, and also we can add more fields here, like for example I type here const customer is going to be, let's say name is going to be order.customer ID, and email is going to be, let's say test@example.com, and we can also put in here our customer like this, sorry customer. And now you can see that we also get in here our customer, which is this one, customer ID, then the ID of the order, then order items, and then this status, and then this total amount. So in this way we can also transform our response, transform our data after validations. Okay, I hope that you understand. So now this is our order schema. Let's move on and let's discuss more about Zod. So now let's create here a test schema. Okay, in that I will try to cover all other important Zod functions. So first of all, in this object, let's define here our union. So we have union and intersection. We know that, that is going to be, let's say union and z dot union, and this union means that this field is either going to be string or it is going to be number. Okay, let me put in here const test result, that is going to be test schema dot parse, and I will parse in here union 10, and then let's put it here like this. Okay, so I will simply quickly add it here, save it, and now if I go back, you can see that here we get this data that is going to be 10. For example, if I put in here a string, save it and reload the page, you can see that here we still get in here this, but if I put in here like false, let's move this one, if I reload the page, you can see that invalid input. So in this union we can define here that either it is going to be string or it is going to be number. So z dot union, in that we have to put in here this array and define in here it is going to be string, number, like this. And you can also put in here more, like I type here that it is going to be z dot boolean. If I go back and now if I reload the page, you can see that it is true, because now this union can be string, number, or boolean. So in this way we can use the union. Now in the opposite we have intersection. Okay, so intersection, for that we have z dot intersection. Okay, now in that we can define in here our intersection values. So I use here z dot object, and I will type here that the name is going to be string and the age is going to be number. Okay, so now to parse that, I will simply type in here intersection, and I will give here name is going to be hello like this. And now if I go back and see that intersection required, okay, because we have only passed in here number, we also have to pass the age. So I will type here that age is going to be 10, and now it is passing. Oops, that is intersection. If I remove this from here, now you can see that intersection required, and if I put in here age like 10, and now it is passing. Okay, so we have to put in here both fields, name and age. In union we have to type either a string, either a number, or either a boolean value. Okay, so in this way we have the union and then we have the intersection. Now let's move on and let's discuss about a tuple or tuple. So I will use here coordinates. So let's say I will use here z dot tuple or tuple, and in that we can define in here our coordinates. We know that coordinates is going to be latitude and longitude, that are going to be number. So I will type here that coordinates z dot tuple, that is going to be z dot number, and then again z dot number. So if I type in here like coordinates, so I can put in here like 1020. If I save it and go back and reload the page, you can see that it is passing. And if I enter here a wrong value like this, it will definitely fail. Okay, expected number, receive string. So in this way we can also use tuple or tuple. Okay, so moving on, next we can also use map. We can use here map or record, whatever we want to use. For example, let's take the example of map. So I will type here that map is going to be z dot map. So in that we can simply put in here that z dot map, and that is going to be z dot string. The key is going to be string, and let's say z dot number, which is going to be value. Okay, so we can define here a map. That map key must be string, and the value must be a number. Oops, we have to actually put that here. Okay, and then we can type in here that map. So I will simply put in here new map, and in that we can simply define it our key and value like this. If I save it, go back, reload, we get here our map that is going to contain key, which is string, and value going to be 10, which is number. And if I put in here like this, it will fail, expected number, receive string. So we have to use in here a number like this. So in this way we can also define our map in here. After map we also have promise. So we can put in here promise, that is going to be z dot promise, and that is going to return a string. Okay, so I will type in here promise, and promise dot resolve hello, and if I go back, it is going to pass because it is returning a string that is hello. Okay, so after promise we have other, like we can also define here a function. So let's say z dot function. Okay, and in the arguments dot args, we can put in here that it is going to contain z dot string. Okay, and then it is going to return a number like this. Okay, and then we can put in here our function that is going to be like this. So in the parameters we have in the arguments we have the string, and it is going to return a number. If I save it and reload the page, it is passing. You can see that in here. Okay, so again we have simply used here z dot function. The arguments is going to contain the string, which is only going to be 1. We can also define here multiple, and it is going to return a number. Okay, so after function we also have here literal. If I use here literal, that is going to be z dot literal, and if I put in here literal hello, save it, reload the page, you can see that it is passing. And if I just move this 0, save it, go back, you can see that invalid literal, expected hello. So you have to use in here hello. So after the literal we can also use here instance of like this. So z dot instance of date, let's say, and then let's pass in here instance of, and that must be date instance like this. If I save it, it will pass because now we have passed in here the date for the instance of like this. Okay, and after instance of we can also add in here or, and actually let's first of all discuss here the nested object. Let's say we have this object, then z dot object. Okay, now in this object we can contain a nested object. Okay, that is going to be z dot object, and that contains further field that is going to be string. Okay, so in this way we can also have a nested object. So object, in that we have to pass in here nested object, that is going to contain a field which is going to be a string like this. So in this way we can also have our nested objects like this. Okay, and after this nested object, let's add in here a field name custom. Okay, So I will use here z dot string, that this field is going to be a string, and then I will use here a function that is called refine. So we can refine our response. So I can check in here that if the value that user has passed, if that value dot starts with custom, then it is fine, otherwise we will throw the error that value must start with custom, and we have here some issue. We have to put in here this bracket like this, and now let's put in here custom. I put in here custom value. If I go back and reload this page, you can see that it is passing, but if I remove this custom from here, or I start it with like one custom, you can see that it is failing. So value must start with custom. In this way, basically we can use this refine to further validate our input if we have our custom logic. Okay, because in this case we have our custom logic that we want to check that if value starts with custom. Okay, you can also check the start with the minimum length, or you can check that if it's within range. Okay, you can add your own custom logic in here within this refine. Okay, and at the end let's discuss two more here. One is going to be or, just like union, it is going to be string, or it is going to be number. Okay, if I type here or, and let's put in here 10, it is going to pass because this is a number. And let's first of all put in here custom, it is going to pass. Okay, if we type in here string, still it is going to be pass because it is either a string or it is going to be number. In the same way we have and. I will type here z dot object. In that I will simply type here that name is going to be string, the name of the user is going to be string, and we can also use in here dot and z dot object, and let's say age is going to be number. Okay, so we have defined here that z dot object that contains name field, which is going to be a string, and it is going to contain the age, which is going to be number. Okay, so for that I will simply put in here that and name is going to be hello and age is going to be 10. If I save it and go back, it will work in the same way as we expected. So or and is just like union and intersection. So these are some important Zord functions that you can use while validating your schemas, while validating your input. I hope that you understand. So we have discussed a lot about Zord, and before closing this video, let's discuss a bit more about the catch. I'll type here const number with catch. You can also use in here catch. So I type here z dot string dot catch, and let's put in here error. Okay, let me run that and I will explain. So I will type here console dot log and number with schema and parse, save and pass in here 10 like this. Okay, if I save it and go back and reload this page, you can see that here we get here success true and data is error. So we have defined here that this is going to be string, and if it is not string, then throw this error. Okay, for example, if I type here this, save it, and you can see that here we get here success true and our data is 10. Okay, so if I go back, you can see that here, so if we pass string, it will give us that data, and if we pass something else, if I type here like false, which is not a string, if I go back, it is going to give us the error from this catch block. So in this way we can also use the catch block. Alright, so now moving on, next we have let's discuss about our last function, that is pre-process. For example, if I type here, let's say const age schema is going to be, and before that let me go back to my here and let's search here dot pre-process. Okay, so you can see that here typically Zord operates under a parse then transform. Okay, but in pre-process what we can do is we can simply transform our input first, and then we can validate that. Okay, so for example, if I type here z dot pre-process, okay, so I can simply type here that In pre-process, I will get my value that user will enter. I type here value. Okay, you can say that let's convert that to the number. I will use here number and pass in here my value. Okay, and then I will write my validation that z dot number, and it is going to be minimum 0. Okay, so again in pre-process we will transform our input data, and then we will validate that. So we will transform our value to number, and then we will validate that it is number or not. Let's say if I type here console.log a schema.saveparts 10. If I save it and if I go back, let's reload this page. You can see that here we get here success true and data is 10, which is number. We have converted our string to the number, and then the validation passed. But what will happen if I type here something like, let's say 25 like this, 20-5. If I save it, go back, you can see that now it is false, because if I go to the error, and in the error, in the issues, you can see that here expected number but received NaN, because we cannot convert this to a number. Okay, we only can convert this one. In the same way, if I type here -5, now it will convert that to number, but that is not greater than 0. If I save it, go back, reload the page, now you can see that the third one is also failing. And if I go to the issues and let me see the error, you can see that number must be greater than or equal to 0. In this way, we can use this pre-process to transform first and then validate. Okay, so simply save it, and that is it for this video. I hope that I have covered most of the functions and most of the functionalities of Zord. If you have any question, you can post in the comment section. I will try my best to respond there. Now before closing this video, we have forgot very important function. If I comment out this one, that is infer. So let's go to the top and let's use infer on this product schema. So if I go back to my Chrome, you can see that here we have this infer z.infer and pass in here type of that user, basically schema in this case, and we get back our the type. If we want to create a type from our schema, for example, we want type of this product. So what we will do is we will define it like this: type, let's say product, and then we will simply put in here the type. Like we add here name, that is going to be string. You also have to put here equal to. Okay, so in this way we have to define the type. But as we are using the Zord, we can simply type in here z.infer and then type of this. So for example, if I copy it from here, and I can put that here. Now our is going to be product type, that is going to be z.infer, and in that we have to pass in here type of that product. Okay, so if I, that is type, if I hover over that, you can see that now this is the product type. So type product type that contains ID, name, description, price, images, and categories. So you don't have to define a separate type for your schema. You can just use here z.infer, pass in here type of product, and you will get back your type like this. And in my next video, I will create a video on how we can use Zord and React hook forms to validate our inputs, both from the client side and from the server side. So make sure to subscribe this channel, and I will add the link of that video in the description of this video once I make that. Okay, and also you can find the source code, which is this one, from the resource of this video. I will push that to a Git repo. Okay, so I will see you in some other video.